We are calling for the creation
of a National Assembly
to vote
on our way out of the crisis.
Ordinary people
making informed decisions
about our future
through a system known as sortition.
Our current system of democracy has only turned up in the last 200-300 years, mainly since I think about the French Revolution and the American Revolution. It kind of annoys me when people say this is a democratic process. You're like, no it isn't. What you've got is nowhere near a democratic process. Effectively, elections are an aristocratic method of choosing things. You're choosing people who are good at getting elected, people who are good at speaking. You're not choosing the best people for the job, and you're not really letting the people have a say. The idea of sortition is, instead of having elected representatives or people who just get into power because they've got more money, we actually choose a random selection of people, which is a much fairer way of doing it. And then we stratify those people so that you get, for example, an equal number of men and women, and you get a good split across socioeconomic backgrounds, so that these people actually form a microcosm society, or what the people call like a mini public, and it just makes for a much better decision-making system. We started the Sortition Foundation a couple of years ago, and we've been connecting with other sortition groups around the world, and so it's beginning to build, and we're funded just by donations. So we've got a few hundred members who just donate something each month, and we go around, we do talks. I got into this because there was a business lecturer in Cambridge called Manuel Arriaga, and he wrote a book called Rebooting Democracy. Just explains everything. There are a lot of academics studying this. It's actually the original form of democracy. It turned up in ancient Greece. They had like a machine, I think it's called a Cleritonian, where you all put your little tokens in as you came by each day, and then they had a little system, I think it was like little black balls, and they just dropped through, and then you pulled out who was actually going to sit and make judgments for the day. Obviously there, it was just rich men who could do it. Obviously women and slaves couldn't take part. An example that's probably closer to what Extinction Rebellion is aiming for is in Ireland. The politicians couldn't make decisions on things like abortion, or I think it was gay marriage. So they kind of offloaded the decisions to a citizens' assembly. So after they'd listened to all the evidence from all sides, so you have all lobby groups, you have scientists, you have religious people talking about how those stakeholders are affected. And then out of that they recommended referendum. The referendum pretty much exactly replicated how they'd voted in the Citizens' Assembly. In Australia, the New Democracy Foundation do citizens' assemblies for the Australian government. Everybody who sees it goes, this is a brilliant idea. There's a civil servant ended up meeting the people from New Democracy Foundation, talked about citizen assemblies, come back over here, and the government are actually sponsoring 8 citizens' assemblies for councils around the UK, and actually putting money in, and we're trying to get one of those in Cambridge. It's quite an issue in local councils. If you go to council meetings, same people. It's always the little activist groups who turn up and go, well, we want this. Whereas if you actually sit down with everyone else who hasn't got like a massive chip on their shoulder, you come up with a reasonable solution and it's not a compromise. It's something you've worked out with evidence. It's not going, you can have half the road and you can have half the road. It's figuring out what is the best use for all of us for the road, you know, or should we just get rid of the road?
We demand to be heard!
We demand to be heard!
To apply informed solutions to these ecological crises! And to create a National Assembly.
We want a citizens' assembly. That is the demand. You're probably talking a process that's minimum 6 months to a year. It's not something we can say, all right, next week we've decided. You've got to listen to a lot of evidence. They'll be selected via sortition, so that'd be randomly, but it's quite key that it's probably not just the electoral roll, because you've got people who aren't on the electoral, or likely not to be on the electoral roll, so possibly homeless people, people under 18 who this is just going to affect them. So maybe we take people down to about 16, and then we figure out what the best stratification is that actually creates a broad representative sample of British society. There is also social inequality issues. You can't just say tax everyone on carbon, because some people need to drive, some people need to fly, and you need to make sure that everybody's taken account of. So for example, you would want someone from the oil and gas industry to say these jobs depend on this, because you need to have that in there. You need to know, well, we've figured out we need to get rid of oil and gas, but how are we going to deal with the people who then won't have a job? Everyone who goes to these assemblies will be trained in critical thinking, so they'll be there listening to, someone's telling me about oil and gas, but this is their resume, this is what, this is what supports them. And so this is how you would avoid lobbying, etc., because it's not like someone can pay for some more time. There is also a call for submissions for the entire country. So this is what they've done in Ireland before. And so you can get outlying views, outlying opinions, possibly outlying solutions that people haven't thought of. And it's about people, not just about money.
We will not tolerate the tyranny of a government that plans the destruction of its people.
It's a much better way of engaging with the community and getting back to what is true democracy, because this sortition deliberation process lets the people rule themselves.